The purpose of life is to grow. And growing is what makes us happy. That's an idea you can trace all the way back to ancient Greek times when there lived a man named Aristotle. Aristotle believed that flourishing was the highest good that anyone could aspire to, and flourishing is just a sexier way of saying growth. The Greeks believed that happiness and flourishing were so intertwined that they only bothered creating one word for both. Eudaimonia. Eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia.
Beautiful language. So what happens when you combine flourishing and happiness into one word? Well, it turns happiness into a verb. Happiness is something you do. It's not a state of being. Our concept of happiness here in the modern industrialized world is much more passive. If you were wearing a Snuggie, drinking boba tea, hate watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we might call that happiness in our culture. They didn't have a word for that in ancient Greece. They would probably call it
quisquillion.
It means waste matter or rubbish. In order to call yourself happy, according to Aristotle, you have to flourish. You have to reach out towards whatever potential you have. Of course, that's easier said than done, but luckily Aristotle created a philosophy called virtue ethics that sort of delineates best practices for flourishing in life. And one of his favorite tools is something called the golden mean. The golden mean. And if you were high during algebra class, mean average. Think about it as the point between two extremes. Let's look at some examples. For instance, being a timely person is about finding the balance between being late to everything, like me, or being overly early to everything, like Hitler probably was. And yes, you can be too early to things. Have you ever talked to the first couple that shows up to a party? It's terrible. Let me give you some more examples, because Aristotle actually broke this shit down. For instance, ambition is the perfect middle point between sloth, a deficiency of ambition, and greed, which is an excess of ambition. With greed, you get Trump. With sloth, you get the reason we elected Trump. Self-control lies in between indecisiveness and impulsiveness. Not being able to choose, choosing too quickly, self-control, right in the middle. And once you've got the pattern down, you can kind of extrapolate from there and make up your own. Let's say you were wondering how much of yourself you should invest in your social life. You're somewhere here in the middle of isolation and codependence. Which direction do you grow in? More socializing or less? Aristotle urges us to move in whatever direction feels more difficult and scarier. Somewhere in the middle, on the other end of effort, is that perfect, ripe middle point that you're striving for. When I think about this idea, I like to imagine Aristotle having an olive, in a steam room. Basic Greek shit. And as he raises the olive to his lips, he has this eureka moment. And he says, this olive is the perfect middle ground between too mushy and sweet and too hard and crunchy on the other end. Let your life become the perfect olive so that you can eat yourself. Not really sure if I stuck that landing at the end, but please hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. My subscribers are the best.